Welcome to the Decide to Move podcast, helping entrepreneurs like you make smart, pivotal shifts in your life and business. Tune in each episode for inspiring stories from brilliant business minds and trailblazers to find out how they made their big moves and how you can too. Now here's your host, author, speaker, business strategist, CEO, and founder of Decide to Move, Monica M. Bijou.
I am so excited to have you back for another episode with me. And today we're going to be talking about how to dominate yourself to win at life. And that is so important right now with everything going on, to be able to learn what you need to do in order to take control of a situation that you don't have control of. You don't have control of COVID, pandemic, or anything else that's happening, but you can control how you respond and the things that you do in life. And today I have with me Natsune Atsuki. She's actually goes by Nana, and she's actually in Tokyo, Japan. So I'm super excited to have her with me. So Nana is a self-mastery enthusiast and a renowned deep thinker. You're going to hear all about it. As you start hearing what she has to say, you can tell she is definitely that. She's the author of The Game of Self-Domination and the host of LifeUpEducationTV. Having built her life from nothing multiple times, including being almost kicked out of high school in Japan, she has not only gone on to finish her university education in business and economics in the United States as a foreigner, and we all know even as American citizens, it is difficult to do that at times. But she's worked with hundreds of innovators, entrepreneurs, and next generation thinkers in Seattle. Despite her young age, she's helped dozens of CEOs and young startup founders skyrocket their successes, all while building her own online businesses on the side. She's very passionate about creating lifelong successes and inspiring others to reach their full potential. Her goal is to help people reach their dreams and master the resilience in life. Thank you so much, Nana, for joining me today. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you very much, Monica, for inviting me. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, all the way from Japan. That is so exciting
Yeah.
for us to be able to connect, right? When I tell people that the podcast is definitely international, it is definitely that. People calling me from all over the world, and it's exciting to be able to have connections all over. And that's one thing I love about podcasting and getting to meet great people like yourself.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And thank you very much. I was very excited to come on your show today. So
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to have you. So for my listeners and those that are viewing this by video, tell them who you are so they can get an understanding of who you are and how you came to own yourself as far as being dominant in your life, because you've gone through trials and tribulations yourself. But what was some of the journeys that you went through?
yeah, so I kind of mentioned this on my bio of, my journey, personal journey, but the journey started when I was in high school because I was born and raised in Japan. And so pretty much like the entire, well, I wouldn't say entire, but, the first half of my life is pretty much happened in Japan. And the Japan was a country where I was never able to really feel like, I was part of, not because the country or culture sucks or anything like that. I mean, it has like really, good thing that offers, but just personally, it has a lot of conflict in the value that they believe versus the value I want to live by and everything. And at the time, like you are basically creating your identity as well, right? So you want to be kind of careful of what you want to surround yourself by. So, I just knew that there was something about Japan that didn't fit in with me, which really now, if I name it, it's the ability to express yourself, be free, and be individual person. Because in Japan, we have a lot of like a village culture where everybody cares for each other and everybody is on other people's life, anyway. So I really didn't like that concept. I was always a loner, like kind of like, very individual person. And once again, like I have always been a courageous person. And I think the first story kind of goes back there. I think one of the very first courageous decisions that I made as a year, like very early adult, was when I was in high school. So I decided, I was put in like a very, smart school, because in Japan, they decide how smart you are at the high school by making you take tests, right? So I was put into this like a good high school, but there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of like, you have to do this, which I didn't like. So I took a courageous decision. I know many kids wanted to take the same decision, but I was probably the only one who was able to take this courageous decision, which was to be just who I am, like to pursue whatever the curiosity I had, and then try it with myself. And that caused me a lot of trouble, because everybody wanted, like the system really wanted us to stay within our lane, right? But I was that kid who would just fuck it up, and I was just like, go do whatever I wanted to do. So the school really didn't like that, and then they didn't like me for that. So I remember this one morning, like we were called in as like a 300, 400 students all together in this conference room. And then they were talking about me, and they were like, oh, this student might get like fired from the school. I'm like, oh my God, this person is talking about. Anyway, so that was a funny story. And, at that time, like I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong, because I was just like being myself, and I wasn't necessarily protesting against the teacher or the students or anything like that. I was protesting against the system of the society, because it just didn't quite fit in with me, and especially that I couldn't express who I was. So I decided, okay, if I stay in Japan, I wasn't going to be able to be successful, because in Japan, the definition of success is if you follow a rule, you're successful. Like the way they teach stuff is still industrial. Like they want you to be part of the machine. They want you to function, and they want you to be efficient. And if you want to create efficiency in organization, there's no chaos, there's no creativity, there's no nothing, right? So they still manage that education system to be that way. So there's no innovation, there's no creativity, freedom of speech, no nothing. But rather they so that's why, like, if you look at it, like when we were at the industrial era, our economy was like a skyrocketing, like super, super strong. But now we're coming into like more of a technology era, where there's a lot more like innovation needed, creativity needed. Like look at America, you guys have like so many companies who are brilliant, have like super interesting ideas. Like a lot of companies that's super killing in the market right now, like Amazon, Apple, like all these companies come from America. And that's because you guys are taught how to think. You guys are not taught how to be a function, part of the function. And it's a freedom. You can express whatever. So in Japan, even if you take the economy inside the picture, Japan, our strength is not to be innovative or have our own opinion, being able to think in our own feet, but rather we are able to organize stuff, we are able to improve stuff. So we would take the idea from America and we'll make it something better, like in our way, right? Like we'll make it more efficient, we'll make it more organized. So that's our strengths. And I guess there's no right or wrong way, but with the dynamic of the era we are living in, with the context of technology era, I think it's more valuable that you have creative or innovative thinking if you want to be the next economics leader as a nation. But anyway, so to come back to your point, I think I associated my personality a lot more with like American side, where you can be creative. It's okay to have your own opinion. It's even encouraged to have your own opinion, and you're able to think in your own, right? So yeah, that's kind of what happened. I was questioning everything, and people didn't like it in Japan.
And that's a powerful story, and I appreciate you sharing it because it helps our listeners and audience to really understand the Japanese culture and then why you're so phenomenal in all the things that you do. Because as I read in your bio, I mean, you have your own TV network, you have, and as you explained before, you have like all these different great things that you're doing of connecting your country, those that are Japanese, with some of the American cultures and other cultures so that they can actually start becoming themselves more creative, more innovative. And it takes a lot of courage to go against a whole country to say, I'm going to be individual, I'm going to be myself, and allow myself to just be who I am, which is, pretty phenomenal. So, I know you talked about you being so young, but you started at a very young age. And, how did your parents respond to your own creativity and your innovation as well? How did they respond
I
to
think, I mean, being different is scary to anyone, right? And I
it?
think there was that, definitely. I think my dad is more like, he has his own business and he understands that there's no right or wrong answer in the market. I mean, there's that, like, in terms of education, there's that moral rule that you need to apply to raise a kid. But in terms of, you being able to survive in the market, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no positive or negative in the market. And I think he understood the concept. So he was a little bit more chill. But my mom is more like a corporate woman. She's a worker. She's, this career woman, but who's been working for this like a big corporation in Japan, but for many years. So I think it was certainly scarier for her. I mean, yeah, I remember all that time, like my mom would especially make me feel I was doing something bad, rather than, being appreciated for my creativity or being appreciated for wanting to be different. But at the same time, I understand because, I was a kid and I was like trying to figure it out, and I didn't really know, like I didn't have the guidance, right? So yeah, I understand. So that was my reaction. And I think a lot of parents outside of our parents would probably do a lot more worse in terms of, trying to destroy the creativity of the kid, because it's much scarier if your kid start acting like different from all the other kids.
Yeah, most definitely, especially when it's about uniformity and complying and following the status quo, which oftentimes parents do, whether it's in America or another country. You have parents that also want their children to live their dreams and
Mm-hmm.
live the things that they didn't accomplish. I've often seen that happen as well, where it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that child is stifled from being able to figure out who they want to be in their creativity. And then you have some
Mm-hmm.
people, parents that are totally on the other spectrum where they're just like, go be whatever you want to be without any clear direction. And then the kids all over the place. So it's kind of like having that
Yeah.
fine balance between that. So
Mhm.
then from there, once you actually, got the ability to own yourself, what age was it that you actually went to America or came to America?
Right. No, actually, it was like very early because I finished my high school and I went straight to America. And it was so funny because I couldn't even speak the language. I wasn't able to say. Well, I was able to say my name, but it was like, "Hi, how are you?" Like, my name is Natsune. Like, that was it. And even though, like, I felt like, wow, I'm home. Like, I felt like, this is my country. So it was a really cool experience. But even though, as you can probably imagine, actually, the first year wasn't that hard. The first year, even though I was learning, I just felt like I was so excited. But, as the year goes by a little bit more, surprisingly, actually, I had a certain point that I can reflect while I was in America, which I'm coming back later. But a certain point where I really felt like, wow, I got no one, like I had no friends, no, nothing, like no. And that kind of started like really kicking in. So those are the times I subconsciously had to build my own mental framework to be stronger and strive in that environment. And I think it really helped me. Like, it's an accumulation of things that makes me who I am today, like how much stronger or capable I am today. And I think subconsciously, all these points, I look back. I mean, there has been like a really, really hard time sometimes. But I really, like, those are the times I really appreciate it. And now I think of it, and yeah, those are the times I adore it.
Yeah, and is that where your book came from? How to Dominate Yourself? Is that where the things that you went through, the things that you experienced, did all your experience end up becoming part of how you actually learned yourself how to dominate yourself during different times?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, on another podcast, I was asked, when was I the most satisfied? Like, someone asked, like, when was that time when you were truly satisfied? And I thought about it, and when I lived in Florida, I did this, like, gala stuff. I did like an arts gala, like a yacht, like, on a weekend, whatever. And then these are like the picture of being successful, right? And then that didn't come to my mind. Like, I mean, it was certainly a nice experience. But when I think about it, I think about just me being alone. Like, it's actually this one very like particular point where I just came out from a convenience store. I was broke. I was so, like, everything. I didn't have anything at all. And, I was feeling super down, like disappointed about myself. I, like, just disappointed. And, I didn't know what to do, really, like, at the time I had my own business, and then I didn't know what to do. I wasn't making enough sales. My bill was coming, and, it was just a really dark moment where you fucked up. And then, I was like eating something from the convenience store, and I don't know, like, my internal voice started speaking to me, and I thought, wow, this is so beautiful. Like, I feel like my life is so richer. I feel like this is the real stuff you're going through with your life that's going to make you stronger. I feel it. I feel that I'm becoming stronger. And I have no other option but to become stronger at this point. Like, I don't know what else to do. And, that was the time I really needed to push myself. And there was no, this fear of failure. There's no, this fear of, like, nothing really mattered. It was the only thing that mattered was, I need to get out of this, and I needed to be owner in my life. I needed to help myself. So, that moment, I was so satisfied, even though, I was in such a shitty situation. Like, I just had this tremendous energy of, like, let's go, like, we can do this, and I think this was such an incredible and powerful experience, point of life that I'm going to always refer back to. Because, I mean, from outside, you look like, you're a loser, you're completely losing. But in the same time, like, that's the moment I felt my beauty in life. That's the moment I really, truly embraced, how beautiful failure is, in terms of how failure can make you so much stronger. So, yeah. That was the time. Yeah, sorry, to come back to your question, I guess those, I have multiple times like that, and I had no other option but to be stronger. And for me to do that, I needed to develop some sort of method. So subconsciously, I started developing my method to shift my perception around failure, and that basically came down to my book, The Game of Self-Domination.
Yeah, and that's pretty powerful to, to say that it was my weakest moment, the moment that I was, down low, that it was the most beautiful moment for you, the moment where you consciously made a decision that it can't get any worse than this, so now it's time to do something different. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty powerful, and look what it, resulted from that moment of you not giving up, you not saying, you know what, this is the worst it's going to be, or well, like, and so many people often stop before the beauty, actually the full circle comes back around. And so, kudos on you for actually continue to drive and say, no, this is the lowest it's going to get. and we're going to make a difference now. So, yeah, I mean, no one's ever told you I'm proud. That's a pretty powerful moment. So let's talk about actually your book and what, entails. I mean, talk about how to dominate yourself. What exactly does how to dominate yourself actually mean?
Right. Well, I think the main and the big theme of my book comes down to you being a leader in life and an owner in life, where you are willing to take good and bad comes along with it, as we talked a little bit discussed earlier. But I guess I would break it down by creating mental transformation, because once again, like, changes are scary, but then changes require you to be the leader, right? Like, you need to navigate through that change. And then, I mean, life is full of changes. And then the moment you stop changing, growing, like, that's the moment you die mentally. So that's what I wanted to talk about. It doesn't necessarily have to be only like, change as in like, big change, like your career change, which absolutely absolutely included in this mental transformation. But I'm referring to changes in general. And I would talk about how you can prepare for the changes in life by 3 different mental stages. So the first stage, I talk about how to create decisiveness and momentum in life. So that moment where you say, like, I'm disgusted about my life situation right now. Like, I need to change. I don't have any other option, but this is the time. I need to quit bitching, need to move. So that's the kind of desperation you need to make in your life. But in the same time, you need to be able to see that. You need to be able to truly believe that there's no doubt about whatever you're dreaming of right now, you can achieve it. And then you can't fake this belief. You need to be able to really decide it. And, confidence and this certainty is your decision. You can have that once you decide to have it. So you have to have those 2 things in order to create the first phase. And then moving on to the second phase, I would talk about perseverance and faith in life, because this is, the commitment is easy, but what makes us fail many times is the resilience part, is the perseverance part. So I would talk about self-awareness, because self-awareness has like such a significant role in make you keep pursuing whatever you're pursuing. Because if that doesn't align with your virtue, if it doesn't align with who you are, I mean, you really don't have any motivation to keep going when hard things happen. So I think we talked about this before when we were on another call, but I refer to this quote from the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. He says, happiness is the virtues of activities. So based on that, I developed this framework called identity circle. And then that's going to make you find who you are, what you believe, what you love to do. But basically, my point of this is, if you don't meet the core of you and then try to pretend to be someone that you're not, like, you're going to have tremendous motivations to just give up. So you need to really align with who you are. You need to have this deep conversation about who you are, really have the strong sense of self-awareness. And that's the moment you're unstoppable. You cannot be stopped when you're so sure about who you are. So I would talk about that. And then eventually I would shift that to more, perseverance talk. And one of them, actually, I included this framework that is predicated on 5 different concepts. One from engineers, Italian engineer, the second one from British economist, the third one from McKinsey, the business consulting company, and then the fourth one from Toyota Rim Manufacturing, the manufacturer company in Japan. And then the 5th one comes from the 34th US president, the matrix that he was using to organize his day. And then I developed this scoring system that people can use to be organized and efficient and effective in their execution plan. So one of the things I talk about is confidence. Part of the confidence comes from your results, So if you are able to see even tiny bit of results in whatever you do, which in order for you to have the results quicker, you should have the goals set in the most efficient and effective way. In order for you to do that, you need to be very organized in the way you communicate with yourself. And it's very useful skill to have in life in general, to be organized about your life, right? So to make that point, I would brand all these 5 concepts that I talked about right now, and then show you how you can kind of apply this like concepts around efficiency and effectiveness in business, used in business and economics, how you can use that in your life application. So that's a part of the thing I talk about in this phase 2. And finally, in phase 3, I guess I would further my conversation about what happiness and success in life, not in overused way, but I would talk about it at the very core level. And actually, this is because I want to further my conversation about the perseverance, creating perseverance in life. Because if you really think about it, like, what are we here for? And that's what I talk about in the 3rd phase.
I like that. And this even phase 1, talking about decision, like my company is called Decide to Move, and it's really about that, starting with the mindset, making the actual conscious decision that you're going to make a transformation, make a change, do a development, do something different than what you've been doing for a long time. And so starting with the mindset, and then going into the action and the strategy of, like, from yourself, the perseverance. What do you need? What do you have inside? What values, what goals, who are you to help you continue the momentum that you started? And then from there, going into like the organizational and the successes, and looking at the big picture of it. So like basically at the end, really figure and honing in of who your purpose is. So I love that. I love how you broke it down in the different stages. So
I love
follow.
I love the name of the podcast too. Like, I love that your show as well, because I think decide is such a strong word. And I think within the perseverance, there's a lot of moments where you have to decide, break your pattern and decide to do something else. Because, I mean, big success doesn't happen as a result of one action. Big success is always a result of accumulation of your small decisions that's going to lead you to success. So I really like that notion of that too.
Yeah, most definitely. And my company, I don't know if you ever heard me talk about it, how it came about, but it basically was me working with a company and helping them make changes in not only from the business standpoint, from them as a person. And then when it was time for me to actually work as a change agent, I just prayed and was like, I don't even know what I did, what steps I'm supposed to take. And then as each letter represents an acronym. So kind of like your steps, each letter is an acronym that actually talks about transformation, growth, and making that big, huge step in your life. And so it just actually ended up working out great that we ended up connecting, because it's like our messaging resonate with one another. So I really appreciate that. So out of all your steps, there's some that you want to break down even further to really go into details. Which one do you feel like is the most important for people to really comprehend, understand, so that they can really see some changes happening for themselves?
I mean, I have many, but if I were to choose only one thing, I would say, in a good way and bad way, everything is on you. Like, if bad thing happens, that's on you, and if good thing happens, that's on you. And I think the reason is because as long as you are in that state of lost in control, like, you really can't take the ownership of whatever happens to you, which is like definitely the first step you need to step in. Like, if you want to make any sort of change in life, you need to be willing to take the ownership of whatever happening to you. And I understand, life is not fair. I mean, Corona stuff, nobody expected that. And, like, no one's fault, really. But I mean, every day injustices happen to everyone. And the true capability in life is the ability to move forward when these things happen. I mean, it's the emotional intelligence, right? Like you need to develop this emotional intelligence and understand that really nothing is about you, right? Like you need to be fluid in the system. I talk about, like, for example, I would talk about difference between being interdependent and being independent. And there's a difference in that. Being independent means you understand that you are individual, and then you are basically striving for your own success, right? And then you're like independent. But being interdependent is one step ahead of that, where you are basically, you understand that you're part of the system, you're part of the bigger system, and then you need to be able to fluid with your action, fluid with your ego, emotion, everything, in order to see the bigger picture, in order to see the life at the macro picture, life of humanity at the macro picture. And it's never about you. If something bad happens to you, that means that like something good is happening somewhere else in the world. Everything is in balance. So when you're kind of able to detach yourself a little bit from your chaotic life and really understand that concept that you're just part of the entire thing, I think it helps you to be more, once again, emotionally intelligent, and then have the courage to keep pursuing, regardless of the adversities you might experience.
And thank you so much for talking about emotional intelligence. I'm actually trained in EQ, and I think that more people really have to understand exactly how emotional intelligence really play into not only their personal life, but in their business as well, and being able to really bring out the best in themselves as leaders, as followers, as entrepreneurs. What has been, do you talk about emotional intelligence in your book as well, or just in your trainings and things that you teach other people?
Yeah, I don't necessarily call it as emotional intelligence, but because I guess the concept is something, there's a similarity in what I explained in the book, which is to say, like, look, it's never about you, it's always about them. That is something I talk about. But yeah, like I haven't really necessarily developed too much in that, and I'm very curious to hear what you think of emotional intelligences. But yeah, so that's kind of how it is right now.
Yeah, so there's big 4 major components that actually talk about, and one of them, the biggest one, is self-management. And I think